Hey guys, sorry this is a little late coming. I was working on doing how do you do a picture book on YouTube, and it was a big learning curve for me, and so it took most of today. Um, by a narrow margin, we are going to be reading The War That Saved My Life. If you want to do some other kind of library things, I've got a 5th grade makerspace course going as well. And the Makerspace Google Classroom is meant to be more fun kind of things. There's science experiments that you can do. There's like a series of video, like a little short video that tells you what you're doing, and then you can do an experiment. I've got code.org in there. I've got a OK Go sandbox video, and you can use an iPad or an iPhone. Almost all of them have a slow-mo shoot. And I'd like for you to make a machine or do something that you're filming in slow motion, and we can post them and look. But if you didn't want to do another book and you want to do the Makerspace and drop me a line and tell me about it, I will count that for your workshop work, okay? So we're not aiming to make it hard. But I'm going to read The War I Finally Won by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. That is hard to say. Chapter 1. You can know things all you like, but that doesn't mean you believe them. Ada, you need to drink something, Susan's voice scolding. Susan's hands pushing a cup of cold tea into mine. I don't want to, I said. Really, I don't. Susan curled my fingers around the teacup. I understand, she said, but please try. It's the last thing they're going to let you have. You'll be thirsty in the morning. My right foot was twisted sideways at the ankle. It had been all my life. Then my ankle bones grew curled so that my toenails scraped the ground, and what should have been the bottom of my foot faced the sky. Walking hurt like anything. Despite the calluses, the skin on my foot tore and bled. This night in the hospital, nearly 3 years ago now, was September 16th, 1940, a Monday. It was a little over a year into the war between Hitler and most of the rest of the world. 11 years into the war between the rest of the world and me. The very next day, surgeons were going to chop my curled ankle bones up and rearrange them, maybe into something like a functional foot. I put the teacup Susan gave me to my lips. I forced myself to sip. My throat closed and I choked. Tea splattered across the bed covers and my tray. Susan sighed. She mopped up the spilled tea, then motioned for one of the nurses that was putting up the blackout to come take away my tray. Since the start of the war, we covered our windows with blackout screens every night so that German bombers wouldn't be able to aim at our lights. My hospital was not in London, which was getting bombed every night right now, but that didn't mean it wouldn't be hit. You never could tell what Germans would do. Letter for you, Mum, the nurse said, handing Susan an envelope as she scooped up the tray. Delivered to the hospital. How odd. Susan opened it. It's from Lady Thornton. She unfolded the letter inside. She must have sent it before she got my note with the boarding house's address. Ada, are you quite sure you don't want something to eat? Toast? I shook my head. The mouthful of tea I'd swallowed swirled in my stomach. I think I'm going to be sick, Susan gasped. She looked up at me, snatched a basin from the bottom shelf of my bedside table, and thrust it beneath my chin. I clenched my teeth and held everything in. Susan's hand shook. The basin shook too. I looked at her face. She'd gone pale, her eyes dark and wide. What's wrong? I asked. What does that letter say? Nothing, she said. Breathe deep, that's it. She put the basin down, folded Lady Thornton's letter and tucked it into her handbag. Something was wrong. I could see it on her face. Is it Butter? I asked. What? Has something happened to Butter? Butter was Susan's pony. I loved him. He was staying in Lady Thornton's stable while I was in hospital. Oh, Susan said, no. That is, Lady Thornton didn't mention Butter, but she would have if anything were wrong. Maggie? Maggie was Lady Thornton's daughter, my best friend. Maggie's fine, Susan said. Her hand still shook very slightly. Her eyes didn't look right. Everyone's fine in the village. And Jamie's fine, I said. It was a statement, not a question, because it had to be true. My brother Jamie wasn't in the village. He was here with us. Susan and Jamie and Bovril, Jamie's cat, were staying in a rented room in a boarding house near the hospital. Jamie was there with the landlady now. Jamie was 6 years old. We'd guessed he was 7, but we had his birth certificate now, and he wasn't, not quite. I was 11. I had my birth certificate too. I'd known my real birthday for just over a week. Susan nodded. Jamie's fine. I took a deep breath. Is something stopping my surgery? Before last week, when Mam tried to snatch us away from her, Susan had said she couldn't give permission for me to have surgery. She still couldn't give permission, but she didn't care any more. She said that what was right and what was permitted were sometimes different things. I needed surgery and I was going to have it. I didn't ask questions. Susan smoothed my hair back from my forehead. I pulled away. I won't let anything stop your surgery, she said. There was still something off about her voice and expression. I knew it had to do with Lady Thornton's letter. Lady Thornton could upset just about anyone. When I'd first met her, before I knew her name, I called her the iron-faced woman. She was sharp, like an axe. Lady Thornton couldn't meddle with us here. We'd lost everything inside Susan's house, but I still had Jamie, Susan, Bovril, and butter, and surgery tomorrow. It was more than enough. You can know things all you like, but that doesn't mean you believe them. A little over a year ago, I taught myself to walk in Mam's one-room London flat. I kept it secret, wiping up the blood before Mam came home every day. I'd only wanted to be able to leave the flat, not the city. But learning to walk saved me. When Mam sent Jamie away from London with all the other kids because of Hitler's bombs, I snuck out too. We ended up with Susan and Butter in a seaside village in Kent. Susan didn't want us then. We didn't want her either, but I wanted her pony, and Jamie and I both liked her food, and eventually we all three wanted to stay with each other. Of course, that was when Mam showed up to take us back. Only a week ago, that was. Susan decided to fight for us. She followed us to London, which meant we were all away from Susan's house the night German bombers destroyed it entirely. So the worst thing, Mam's return, became the best thing, not dying in the bombs. Now everyone was acting like my surgery tomorrow would be the best thing ever, which made me worry that it might turn out bad. Susan said it couldn't be bad. She said she hoped my foot would work properly after the surgery, but if it didn't, I would be fine. I was fine now, and I would be fine afterward, no matter what. Maybe. Depended entirely on what you meant by fine. We were still in a war. The nurses claimed they'd be able to get all the patients into the basement quickly enough if the air raid sirens went off. They hadn't had to do it yet, so who knew if they really could? Susan leaned forward. She hugged me. It was awkward for us both. I let out my breath. My stomach still churned. Don't worry, Susan said. I'll see you in the morning. Go to sleep. I couldn't sleep, but the night passed anyhow. In the morning, Susan held my hand while a nurse wheeled my bed down the hall. We stopped outside a heavy white door. The nurse said to Susan, "This is as far as you can go." I hadn't realized Susan would have to leave me. I clung to her. What if it doesn't work? For a moment, her fingers tightened around mine. Courage, she said, and let go. In the operating theater, a man in a long gown held a mask in front of my face. "When I put this over your mouth," he said, "I want you to very slowly count to 10. I only made it to 4 before I fell asleep. Coming out of the ether was harder. My right leg was pinned, trapped. I couldn't move. I broke into a sweat, struggling to pull myself free. I'd been caught in the bombing, buried in the rubble. I couldn't move my leg. Then somehow I was trapped again in the dank cabinet beneath the sink in our old flat in London. Mam had locked me inside. The cockroach... Shh. Susan's voice, soft in my ear. Settle down. It's over. You're fine. I was not fine. Not in the cabinet. Not with Mam. Someone pinned my arms, threw a blanket over me and tucked it in tightly around my sides. Open your eyes, Susan's voice said, still gentle. The surgery is over. I opened my eyes. Susan's face swam blurrily in front of me. You're safe, she said. I swallowed hard. I said, You're lying. I'm not. I can't move my leg, my right leg, my clubfoot leg. You haven't got a clubfoot, Susan said. Not anymore. I woke properly in the middle of the night. Screens surrounded my bed. A dim light shone behind them. Susan, I whispered. One of the night nurses came to my bedside. Thirsty? She asked. I nodded. She poured me water and I drank. How badly does it hurt? I couldn't move my right leg because the doctors had put a cast on it after surgery. I remembered now. Beneath the plaster, a strong, dull ache centered around my right ankle and pulsed towards my knee. I don't know, I said. It always hurts. More than you can bear? I shook my head. I could bear almost anything. The nurse smiled. That's right, she said. Your mother said you were a tough one. She handed me a pill. Swallow this. I said, Susan's not my mother. Thank God for that. I swallowed the pill and fell back asleep. When I opened my eyes again, Jamie's face was inches from mine. His hair looked like it hadn't been brushed in weeks. His eyes were red and swollen. He was crying. I pushed myself up in a panic. What's wrong? Jamie launched himself onto the bed. He banged my cast. I winced. Easy, Susan said, pulling him back. Jamie burrowed against me. I put my arms around him and looked over his head to Susan. Tell me what's wrong, I said. It was in Lady Thornton's letter, Susan answered. I nodded. I knew that. Jamie said, Our man's dead. You could know things all you like, but that doesn't mean you believe them. Well, after we just finished the first book where they escaped from Mam, and that was the battle that Ada fought, I would imagine this would be a really mixed up time kind of feeling. You would have to be sad, and at the same time, you would know that Mam wasn't coming back to hurt you. But I think she's still sad because she still loves her mother. I don't know. But we'll find out in chapter 2 how she's feeling. See you tomorrow, guys.